You ever look at a bag of 80-pound concrete mix and feel like it's judging you? Just sitting there on the pallet, heavy as a bad conscience, waiting for you to mess up the water ratio.
I think that's just your lower back preemptively protesting, Tiger. But honestly, concrete is the one material that scares me. Most things we do, if you screw up, you grab a crowbar or a sander. With concrete, once it's cooked, it's a monument to your own incompetence forever.
It's a permanent record, no doubt about it. It's the only medium where you're basically racing a chemical reaction that wants to turn into a rock before you've decided where you want it to sit. But today, we're going to strip the mystery off it. For everyone listening who wants to pour a walkway or a shed pad without ending up with a lumpy, cracked mess that looks like a dried up lake bed.
All right, let's start at the very bedrock. Pun intended. Everyone wants to talk about the pour, but I've watched enough neighbors do this to know that a bad slab starts long before the truck shows up or the bags get ripped open. What's the stuff under the gray stuff?
This is where people get impatient and where the universe punishes them. You can't just scrape some grass away and call it a day. You're building a structural sandwich. First, you need a subbase. That's your native soil. It has to be compacted. If it's soft, like an old sponge, your concrete is going to follow that softness down into a crack. Then comes the base material, usually a few inches of crushed stone or gravel. This isn't just for support, it's for drainage. Water is the mortal enemy of concrete. If it gets trapped under there and freezes, it'll heave that slab like a tectonic plate.
Is that why I see people putting down that fabric stuff? The landscaping cloth on steroids?
Exactly. Geotextile fabric. It keeps your nice clean gravel from getting sucked down into the mud over time. It's like a separator for your layers. If you skip the base prep, you're basically just pouring a very expensive, very heavy cracker over a pile of marshmallows.
Okay, so the ground is ready. It's flat, it's hard, it's drained. Now I see people putting in the skeleton, rebar or that wire mesh that looks like a giant grill grate. Do I really need that for a simple backyard pad? It feels like overkill.
Let me tell you a secret about concrete. It's incredible under compression. That means pushing down on it. But it's about as strong as a wet biscuit when you try to pull it apart. That's tension. Temperature swings, settling ground, they pull on the concrete. If you don't have steel in there, those tiny micro cracks have nothing to grab onto, so they just keep moving. Use rebar for anything structural. Half-inch stuff is usually the sweet spot. For a thin walkway, that welded wire mesh is okay, but here's the kicker. People just lay it on the ground. If the steel is sitting on the dirt, it's doing absolutely nothing but rusting. You've got to use chairs or little concrete blocks to keep that steel suspended right in the middle of the pour. It needs to be the heart of the slab, not the skin on the bottom.
It always looks so easy when the pros do it. They just hook it with a rake and pull it up while they pour.
Yeah, and half the time they pull it too high or it sinks back down the second they step away. Do yourself a favor and chair it up properly. Don't leave it to chance while you're sweating and fighting the clock.
Speaking of fighting the clock, the mixing. This is where I usually see the most panic. Either someone is using a 5-gallon bucket and a stick like they're making a giant cake, or they have a line of bags and no plan.
Mixing concrete by hand is a young man's game or a very small project's reality. If you're doing anything bigger than a post hole, rent a mixer. Your back will send you a thank you note in the mail. But the real trick, the thing that separates the pros from the oh-nos, is the water. There is this massive temptation to add more water because it makes the concrete flow easier. It's like liquid butter. But every extra drop of water you put in that isn't required for the chemical reaction stays in the mix as a void. When that water eventually evaporates, it leaves behind a microscopic Swiss cheese structure. Too much water equals weak concrete that'll flake off in 3 years. You want the consistency of thick oatmeal. If it's soupy, you've already lost the battle.
So basically, if it looks like it's easy to pour, you've probably ruined it.
Precisely. It should be a bit of a workout to move. You want it to hold its vertical shape if you pile it up, but still cream up when you hit it with a tool.
Okay, let's say the pour is done. I've seen you do this, Tiger. You start doing this weird dance with a long board. It looks like you're trying to level it, but you're also kind of shaking it.
That's screeding. You take a straight 2x4, and I mean a straight one, not one that's shaped like a hockey stick. And you saw it back and forth across the top of your forms. You're striking off the excess. But then comes the magic, the bull float. This is the part I actually enjoy. You push that big float across, and it pushes the heavy aggregate, the rocks, down, and brings that smooth cement paste to the top. It's like icing a cake that's trying to bite back. You have to wait for the bleed water to disappear before you do your final finish. If you try to finish it while there's still a shimmering layer of water on top, you're just trapping that moisture under the surface. That's how you get map cracking or scaling later on.
This is the patience part. I'm guessing this is when most DIYers get a beer, get distracted, and then realize the concrete has turned into a sidewalk while they weren't looking.
I once sat on a bucket for 3 hours in 90-degree heat, just staring at a slab, waiting for that water to vanish. My neighbor thought I was having a midlife crisis. I told him I was just negotiating with the chemistry. If you miss that window, you aren't finishing it anymore. You're just scratching a rock.
And the edges. I've seen that little tool that makes the rounded corners. Is that just purely for looks?
Actually, no. Sharp corners on concrete are brittle. If you leave a 90-degree edge, it'll chip the first time someone bumps it with a lawnmower. That edging tool packs the aggregate down and creates a rounded, compacted shoulder that can take a hit. Plus, it makes it look like you actually knew what you were doing.
We've talked about the prep, the steel, the pour, and the finish. But there's one thing I see people argue about. Do I need to cut those lines in it? The control joints? Or can I just have one big, beautiful, smooth sea of gray?
Oh, you can have a big smooth sea for about a week. Then Mother Nature is going to draw her own lines, and she has terrible handwriting. Concrete is going to crack. It's a fact of life. Control joints are just us telling the concrete where we want it to crack. We're basically pre-scoring it. You want those joints to be about 1/4 the depth of the slab. If you don't use a groover while it's wet, you'll have to come back with a diamond saw later, which is a dusty, miserable job that'll make you look like a ghost by the time you're done.
So, what's the biggest tiger disaster you've had with this stuff? Give the people some hope.
Years ago, I was pouring a small landing for some back stairs. I was cocky. I didn't brace my forms because I thought, it's only 6 inches deep. How much pressure can it really have? Halfway through the pour, the sideboard just bowed out like a belly after Thanksgiving dinner. Wet concrete started flowing into the flower beds like lava. I was out there in my good boots, trying to kick mud back into a hole while my wife watched from the window. I ended up having to screw a brace into a tree just to hold the line. It looked like a crime scene by the time I was done.
See? Even the master gets handled by the mud sometimes.
That's the thing about concrete. It respects no one. But if you respect the process, the base, the water, and the timing, it'll give you a surface that'll outlast your mortgage.
That's a heavy takeaway, literally.
Last piece of advice. Don't let it dry too fast. Keep it damp, put some plastic over it or mist it. Concrete doesn't dry, it cures. It needs that moisture to finish the chemical bond. If it dries out in a day, it's going to be brittle. Treat it like a newborn for the first 48 hours. Keep it tucked in and hydrated.
Well, I'm still terrified, but at least now I know why.
Just remember, you aren't making a sidewalk. You're just managing a very heavy, very gray tantrum. Get your forms tight, your gravel flat, and keep your water in check, and you'll be the king of the neighborhood.
Thanks for digging into the dirt with us today. Get out there and build something that stays put.
Just make sure you like where you put it. You aren't moving it tomorrow.